Good evening and welcome to our Space Pathways Dialogue. Today's the UN International Day of Neutrality, and I'm really pleased that we have Dr. Claire Nelson to lead this dialogue. Good day, Dr. Claire. I hope all is well.
Good day, all is well. And greetings to everybody else in your listening audience and wherever you're listening in from. Thank you so much for having me in this conversation about space for all as we celebrate the Day of Neutrality.
Excellent, excellent. So give us the background to the whole operation that you're involved in as it relates to the space program.
So I am the founding convener of something called the Space Futures Forum. It's really a community of practice that I have pulled together loosely as an initiative of a nonprofit. I run the Futures Forum. And the goal is really to bring together people from emerging space nations or non-active nations, along with those who are working in the global north, in spacefaring nations, to ensure that we do support and advance the UN's construct of space for all. That's part of what the UN Outer Space Office on Outer Space Affairs has a priority. And of course, to make things happen, people have to move these ideas from paper and policy into practice. So Space Futures Forum is a practice area for those of us committed to ensuring access to space for all. From this perspective, we started off just as let's say a conversation, and very quickly moved to starting with our first project, which is a research partnership we have with University of Mauritius, University of Charles Darwin in Australia, University of Oulu in Finland, and Northern Caribbean University, anchored here in the United States at Morgan State University, which is a historically Black college. And that project is to do a small research in solar energy and climate data management. And the real purpose of it is not just to do it, because obviously people already know how to do it, but really to see how we could begin as a small minority university in the United States, which is considered quote unquote under resourced, partner to bring Black engineers and scientists from the US who don't often get international exposure into the international dialogue. And so our selection of these countries, 2 islands, 2 big nations, 1 cold, 2 in the global, two in the hemispheric north and 2 in the hemispheric south, Mauritius and Australia, to get a sense of the data and then have these engineers and scientists explore working together and learning how. This is important because if space is going to be for all, we have to start practicing. How do we ensure universities and small universities that are under-resourced are part of the conversation? And this was exciting. And why Morgan? Because Morgan is the home of Dr. Richard Damoa, who is from Ghana. He is a research and visiting professor at the All Nations University, which is a demonstration of what it means for a small, quote unquote, under-resourced university in Africa to do great things. And together with our guest here, Ernest Tay, they worked assiduously to get support to build and launch the first ever CubeSat from a university in Ghana. I'm very proud and excited. This was many, many years ago. And now we're on CubeSat 2 and 3 design and getting ready to work, find how we're going to get that launched. But the point is, we have Ernest here to talk about his story and how we got here. The other people on the call who I'll get to later are Honorable Wario Adehi is the MP from the North Horr constituency in the Marsabit County of Kenya, where we hope to have our practical first installation of a space research camp, along with Dean Engineer Charles Moniki from Machakos University, where I am now embedded myself as a visiting professor, and they're our partners on the ground to bring the education, the young people who are the majority of people in Africa up to scratch. And of course, we have another young person in the body of Jemima who is our research assistant at the Futures Forum and responsible for the project management Oasis, the Ghana project. We were doing also a project in Northern Ghana. So Northern Kenya and Northern Ghana, our two first landing points. So with that, I just want to say again, thank you for having me, and begin the conversation by inviting Ernest Mate to tell us a little bit more about the CubeSat project that transformed Ghana's history and certainly put the small, no-name university, private college, all nations university in Ghana on the map. Ernest, the floor is yours.
Great. I'm so excited to be online today, being the International Day of Neutrality, where we are raising the awareness regarding the importance of neutrality in intergovernmental relations to strengthen peace and security at the global level. And I believe that the space sector has a big role to play in international security. And so this discussion is on course, and I am so excited to share about the Ghana Sat-1 story. And so the name of the CubeSat is Ghana Sat-1. The name of the university is All Nations University. Now, let me share this. We've never shared it on any platform before. When we were about launching the satellite, we had to register the satellite with a name. We had two options, either to call it All Nations University Satellite 1 or Ghana Sat 1. If we call it All Nations University Satellite 1, it's going to sell the university. It's going to propel the university because the name of the university is tagged with the satellite. But then the vision for the satellite was that Ghana, as a nation, after 60 years, what do we have to show to the world as our key achievement in terms of technology and innovation? And so if you realize, you notice that Ghana was 60 years in 2017. And actually, the plan for that satellite was to launch the satellite to show to the world that Ghana has achieved this after 60 years of independence. And so the independence was in March 2017, but then the timing couldn't match perfectly, but the satellite was launched in June 2017. So we had about a 2 or 3 months lapse over there. But then the mission was accomplished. The mission was that Ghana should have something to show to the world that we have achieved this. Now, you realize that the first satellite, Sputnik 1, was launched in 1957. There's a bit of a story, a nice story over here. The first satellite, Sputnik 1, was launched in 1957, the same year Ghana had its independence. Right. And Ghana was able to launch its first satellite exactly 60 years after. Yeah. It sounds like a nice story. However, it has two sides. That means that Ghana is 60 years behind the space race.
Exactly, but it's 60 years behind the space race, but it's still, to me, in the race, because for a university the size of All Nations, which is under-resourced, and you can talk to us more about the engineering school that was launched. It's a private university launched by diaspora members. Yes. So the fact that, again, the diaspora based in Canada came together and said, we can do this, is how we move from brain drain to brain gain. And that's what Space Futures Forum, Oasis, and Space on Ghana is about. But so tell us a little bit more about the actual project, location. Because first of all, when I went and looked at it, I was like, oh my God, it's just a small room. right? So talk to us about how it takes grit, the grit it took, recognizing the limitations of a university like yours to get this done.
Great, great. Like you said, it had some influence of the diaspora in it because the owner of the university, Professor Samuel Donko, is primarily in Canada, and so we have this group of people in the diaspora who came together to begin the All Nations University. And one advantage of the diaspora experience is that you are open to two sides of experiences, and it helps you to be able to sort of transport what is happening on the other side of the world to be developed in this side of the world. And so the idea of the satellite was solely from him, being in the diaspora. He came up with the idea that Ghana had to launch a satellite. All Nations University is a private Christian university of a population about 2,000 students. And like you rightly said, you use the word fairly under-resourced, so to say, because it's a private university. But the engineering school of the university is well known in Ghana, not only in Ghana, but in sub-Saharan Africa. And it's because the engineering school has commenced programs which this university was the first to bring in this part of Africa. Example, biomedical engineering, oil and gas engineering. These are two powerful programs that All Nations University started in this part of Africa. Then the CubeSat project. And so the CubeSat project, it started in 2012, where we were just a group of students. I was graduating in 2013, just a group of students. And you came to see our lab, though it's a humble lab, but it's a very historic lab. And so that is where the program started, where after school, we sit down, we research into space science and satellite technology. And in 2013, we were able to demonstrate capacity by launching an educational satellite called the CANSAT, which we hung on a balloon and took it so high into the skies. But then let me share an interesting story around that. It may interest you to know. When we went to the media, the Ghanaian media, that we were launching an educational satellite, which we stressed on it, educational satellite. Then, right after that, the next day, we saw the news headlines that All Nations is launching a rocket from our campus. And we had no space we had no space to correct that.
Yeah.
Because when the Ghana television picks it, then all the others will pick it. Okay. Right? And so the news was out there that All Nations is launching a rocket from Koforidua in Ghana. We had no space to correct that. All we had was a small satellite, which was not going to space. That was in 2013. And then we had a very big balloon. At least the balloon was very big to entice people. It was so big. It was a weather balloon. And to our surprise, we had media people from South Africa, media people from the US. Our campus was big because All Nations University is launching a rocket from Koforidua. And so we inflated the balloon, and people were happy. I think that the balloon did it for us. Yeah. So we inflated the balloon. It was so big, and they were just clapping, seeing it inflated and so big on the campus. Then we brought this satellite. It's just electronic that is fixed in a 500 ml Coca-Cola can. It has sensors on it. So it's supposed to fly about 200 meters high and to take pictures. That was all. Then we realized we have to explain to the crowd what exactly we were about to do so that they don't expect the rocket. And so we told the MC that this is it. It should announce to them that they are bringing the satellite and they will hang it on the balloon, fly it high, and they are going to release it, the parachute. So the MC said it so nicely, and the claps just multiplied. And at this time, let me say this clear. At this time, we the engineers, we were in the lab. Do you know why? We were struggling with the power system of the CubeSat, the CANSAT. We were trying to power it at that time, and it wasn't coming on. And so it was very dramatic on that day. Then soon it started raining. We have a documentary of all these things, pictures and videos. I can share that with you. It started raining. So during the time of the rain, it was announced that the engineers are still working. They cannot operate the balloon and the satellite in the rain. And so let's give them some time. And so within that 1 hour, we were able to restore the CANSAT. Then the engineers came out, as young as we were, looking so tiny, students, and the claps just everywhere. So we brought the CubeSat, we hung it on the balloon.
The CANSAT.
The CANSAT. So we had a chief, the chief for this province. He was there. He was there to witness a CANSAT. The chief was there with an entourage. We had the minister coming, and we went to hang the CANSAT on the balloon. We were lifting it, and it was so amazing. It was so amazing. On my part, I thought the people would be disappointed because the news was All Nations was launching a rocket in Kofrodia. But we realized that because space education was just so little here, the people didn't even know what to expect. They didn't even know the difference. They didn't know anything about it. They were just excited that something new is happening today. And so we lifted the balloon, and the claps, the yellings, and we were able to release that CANSAT, and it was flying with the parachute. We had a live stream. They saw the videos, they saw the pictures, and they were just oversatisfied. Do you know that achievement was what took the university? Just the name of the university was just flying everywhere. And
you know, I'm gonna jump in here and say this is exactly why I'm happy that Dr. Dean Charles Monique is here to hear the story directly from you, because they are a university in Kenya, the one that we're partnering with, Machakos. It is not a private university, it's run by the government, but it's a fairly new university, and it sees itself as an underdog university. So they're very excited about bringing the Oasis space exploration analog simulation project to Kenya. And of course, our mutual partner in both is Dr. Richard Damour, who is not on the call, but is definitely a part of this conversation, because his work as a climate scientist was, and his association with NASA enabled more information. And again, this is where the diaspora becomes important. Because of his connections, he's able to help guide the All Nations University to make the right connections with Japan, to be part of the Japanese training program. They could actually go and build out the CubeSat. But I want to bring in Dean Monique here, who has just received the gift of his first climate station from Dr. Damore, and just ask for his response to the story of his first CANSAT, given that we have a CANSAT experiment to be done at Machakos. So now, as you're hearing that, do you see how a university like All Nations could partner with a university like yours? How do you see that sort of a partnership beginning between Ghana on the west and Kenya in the east to move this space education agenda, given that you at Machakos are also very new and also very under-resourced? Dean Charles, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Claire and the other members of the panel. My name is Charles Mwaniki from Machakos University, Kenya. Machakos University, as Dr. Claire has said, it is relatively young, but a public university. We have very enthusiastic departments and students. One of the student organization is innovation. We have student club called Innovation Club, and they are very enthusiastic. They also don't want to be left behind when it comes to the space exploration. Thank you so much, Ernest from Ghana. I can imagine how the day was like, and we are also enthusiastic about this. And through Dr. Claire, we have been able to have a small weather station at Machakos University, of course, through the Dr. Damore of Morgan State University. And we are very excited because now wherever we are, we can be able to tell, we can be able to get the quality of air that Machakos University and local residents are able to access. And we have a local hospital where they record cases of respiratory diseases. And one way we want to enhance the research is now the researchers at the hospital, they are able to get data so that they can be able to correlate the cases of respiratory diseases that they are recording at the hospital and the actual quality of air that we are recording in Machakos University and its environment. This has created a very, very interesting scenario where the weather station is being manned by students. We have students who have been allocated that task. They're able to ensure that the weather station is working, the power is always there, the internet is there. So we are very happy that our students have taken it up. And through this, we're able to share with the local health facilities we have. We want to take it further where we can be able to share this data with the whole world, including Ghana, other countries in Africa. We're able to share this data through cloud computing because we also have a lab that is dedicated to cloud computing and information security. The students are able to share the data through the cloud to the whole world. And now we want to take a step further and also explore in the space. We also don't want to be left behind in space exploration, although Kenya has been able to make a few steps towards that, but we are not yet there. So with the facility in Northern Kenya, again, we have students who are very enthusiastic. They have organized themselves into club and they are very eager to participate in this because this is going to be an ecosystem where all fields would be required, from tourism, from agriculture, health, engineering, business, and the like. So it's going to be an ecosystem, and we want to bring everybody on board so that we can have researchers. One of the tagline of Machakos University is co-creating sustainable futures.
Excellent.
And it is very difficult to co-create sustainable futures if we don't mentor young scientists.
Mm.
And therefore, to make sure that we have sustainable futures, we are bringing on board young scientists, the students, so that they can be part of this from the word go. Well, some of them are very young compared to me. So when we compare how much we can do, the students stand a better chance to do more than I can do because they have a whole lifetime with them. And therefore, we want to encourage them to come on board so that the futures that we are creating now, we are able to sustain this future, not just for Kenya, but for Africa. We also want to be at the helm of space exploration for the good of Africa, for the good of the whole world, the whole global. And therefore, we are excited to be part of this. And we have also learned a few lessons from our friends in Ghana. Their first encounter with launching the cancer, what did they call it? The cancer. Yes, the concert. Yes. So we are encouraged and we want to wedge forward. Thank you. I'm excited to be part of this. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yes,
Charles.
thank you. You know what I just want to say before
I thought I was completing the story, but it's okay. I think other panelists can speak.
Yeah, because Ernest, one of the things we want to have talk about this idea of neutrality, space for all, is we at Space Futures Forum and Space on Ghana started in Kenya in 2023, and your university, All Nations, was the host of Space on Ghana in 2024. Now, Ungana is a Kiswahili word meaning gather. And the reason why I call it Space Ungana versus Space Conference or Space Forum, because what we're doing is slightly different from a traditional conference. We really are creating a gathering of people interested in this idea of collaborating, cooperating, and even co-competitioning, right? So it's the competition, but it's also collaborative to ensure that Africa moves faster because they're moving together. Because what we have noted is that we don't see significant amounts of research partnerships happening in Africa the way I have experienced, like here, having gone to engineering school here in the United States, so my master's, my bachelor's, and my doctorate. I know that there's a different way of working in the world, that there's a lot more partnerships in terms of research. And so if we're to really going to advance African space agenda, which now that it's an Africa Space Agency, which is headquartered in Egypt, we really have to ramp up the educational capacity, the foundational capacity. So the pioneering work that All Nations has done in terms of demonstrating that a small school can do with the right passion and intellectual capital, it demonstrates that, first of all, intellectual capital and genius is not only in rich schools. So I always am amazed at the capacity of Ernest and his team to wire together stuff with limited resources to get stuff to work. And so one of the things, the outcomes we want to see for next year is we would love to see get support, raise funding somehow. I'm here thinking about how can I sell moon rocks, moon candy or something so that we can get the students from Ghana to go to Machakos University to actually demonstrate a concept project and accelerate the ability of the students at the Innovation Club in Machakos, so they don't have to start from scratch. They can be coached online by Ernest's crew, and then they can actually go and do it. So these are some of the things that we have in the pipeline as we talk. But I think you had a question. I'm going to give you back.
So Ernest, if you could, you wanted to finish your story.
Right. And so I just shared our first significant project, that's the concert. And we continued to 2014, where we established a satellite ground station to be able to communicate with satellites passing over Ghana. So we have that station here, operated by students of all nations. And I would also like to share the best thing that has ever happened to us with the ground station was that there was a competition from the International Space Station to communicate with the astronauts on board. And for the first time, we registered for the competition. And I think they were a bit surprised that for the first time, a university in Sub-Saharan Africa had registered for the competition, which should mean that the university should have the ground station and the capacity and the knowledge to communicate with astronauts on board the International Space Station. And so we did our setup. The ground station was operational. It's currently operational. Has communicated with more than 30 satellites passing over Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But then that night, the ISS was passing over us, I think in the night. And then the same team, the same CANSAT adventurous team, we were waiting in our labs and we had set our systems and everything. And so it was a two-way voice communication with the astronaut. And so the astronaut sends something, your systems are able to receive it. You should decode it and understand what they said, and then you reply. And in 2014, August, we were able to do that here at All Nations University. And so it was also another big news, but that was 2014. So fast forward, in 2015, we said, now we have to go to space. People came to see the balloon, they were excited. They heard about the ISS, they were excited. But now it's time to go to space. And so there was some collaboration through Dr. Damoa, Morgan State University, and also with Japan, and then to NASA. And so we began developing GhanaSat-1 from Ghana here. And because we don't have the facilities here, we had to complete it in Japan and to launch it from the US. And GhanaSat-1, when it was being lifted to space, as one of the three engineers who developed it, there was only one thing that came to mind, which was the very words of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah when he said, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. When I saw the rockets being lifted, and it just dawned on me that this rocket has something that a black man has solely developed, has been approved and accepted to be in this rocket. That statement just came to mind. And so that's just a brief of our story, how GhanaSat-1 came. And after GhanaSat-1, we are running other projects, which I may reserve for now. Maybe it may pop up in subsequent discussions. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And Claire, I think it's great to hear of that level of achievement and I think particularly representing the creative ambition and the aspirations of their community and the country. So
yeah, because when I first, let me just say this, because when I first thought, why can't the Caribbean have a CubeSat? And I Googled and I found out about GhanaSat. And then I realized that the gentleman involved was right up the road from me, Dr. Richard Damoa. I mean, I was on fire that day. I called, he didn't pick up. I called, finally he picked up and I said, hello, you don't know me, but I need you. And he said, who are you? I introduced myself and I said, I want to have the Caribbean to have a CubeSat, like what you did for Ghana. He said, oh, don't worry, my sister, I will help you. And that was it. That was it. And so now we have a partnership that is about, first of all, getting another satellite to be, satellites normally have a lifetime, and you can correct me, Ernest, of about 3 years. So we want to launch a second CubeSat. But of course, there have been new payloads and new technologies that we want to test out, because we don't want to just be repeating what already has been done. So they're working on new robotic controls and new things that they can add to demonstrate that they're not just replicating other people's experiments, they're now innovating. And that's what the next GhanaSat 2 is going to be, an innovation that brings new knowledge into being. So somebody can get out of this research, this time a doctorate or a PhD, which they couldn't get from the first one, right? Because you have to always bring something new to get a doctorate or a PhD. So that's exciting. The second exciting thing from a satellite perspective is that which is a constellation, vision of all nations. I'm on that team as well. And yes, we're not there yet, but we've decided to start small. And so this year when we were in Ghana, we started talking about we're going to run some PICOSAT classes online, and Ernest will be probably the person leading that. All of us will take those classes. And so the universities across Africa who even have less budget, we can start with building smaller PICOSATs and do a constellation of that. So Machakos for sure will be a part of that, because now we have begun to link the chains between East and West Africa in a new way. And that is the joy I have to see my vision of Space Futures Forum, my vision of bringing African diaspora people to engage with the countries they left behind in the ways that we can. And it always begins with education and capacity building.
Okay, so maybe we could say a bit about the NGOs such as Oasis, and we've got Jemima here, haven't we?
Yes, so Jemima I met in Ghana this year. She was one of the young people who presented in a debate we had on why Ghana should have a space agenda. And let me tell you, it's not that easy for the Ghana Space Agency and schools like All Nations to get support, because of course people are saying, well, we can't even feed people, or we don't even have housing. Why should we concern ourselves in space? And that's the challenge that all the engineering schools across Africa have, this tension between where do we spend that extra $5 we have. And so Jemima was very intrigued about the project. She did a fantastic presentation, and her side was the side why we shouldn't go to space, right? But even she competed on that side, she was able to justify at the end, or able to be convinced by the other speaker that maybe she will leave her options open. So I'll have her talk about her role as she sees it in leading the Oasis Ghana, because Oasis Ghana is going to have to, again, just like what's happening in Kenya. Of course, I'm driving, I'm educating, I'm putting people together, but the Oasis project that will happen in Ghana will probably be headquartered out of All Nations University. Jemima herself is a soon-to-be a graduate student at NUST, which you also have a relationship with. So we can now begin to see that network of partnerships between universities in Ghana happening because definitely All Nations and NUST will be partners along with the university in the north. And so a group like Oasis, which is an NGO, has more flexibility. So she'll talk to you about her vision and her work to date in other NGOs in Ghana promoting the space agenda. Jemima, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Claire. About that little story about the debate on the moon-based space station in Ghana, I actually wanted there to be a moon base for Ghana or for Africa, but I was skeptical about it. And I think, as Dr. Claire said, everything the other person said convinced me that, okay, maybe we are ready for it. So before I begin my presentation, I'll just talk a little bit about what I have been doing. So my first working experience was at the Ghana Radio Astronomy Observatory, where I was there as an electrical engineer for a year. So I was doing a little bit of work there, so a little astronomy, a little electronics and engineering. And merging all of them together just proved to me two core things. The first core thing it proved to me was that anybody can do anything they set their mind to, regardless of race or gender. It was the most important thing it brought to me. And the second thing I also realized about when I was working at the observatory was that there is a discrepancy against we, the Black people, in relation to doing astronomy and astrophysics and engineering. And it is mostly because of our own minds and what we think that we can or cannot do. So there is no, for instance, in Ghana, people always think that other people in other countries who are not Africans are more intelligent or are smarter than who we are in ourselves. And working at the observatory was able to kind of debunk everything that I have thought about that time. Then after working at the Ghana Radio Astronomy Observatory, I'm also a volunteer at PRASAG, which is promoting radio astronomy in Ghana through school visits and astro clubs. So with PRASAG, I was fully involved with doing outreach. I was involved in teaching children, schooling, everything about them. So to basically promote astronomy education, what is exactly the core of this presentation, and I'm glad I'm able to give a perspective on astronomy education in Ghana. I also work a little bit with the Mars Society. I normally manage their website, just put all of the information up there, use a little bit of my knowledge, which I know. And lastly, and I think most importantly, I'm working with Oasis Ghana. And I think Oasis Ghana falls in line with my vision for Ghana and Africa and how important it is for the Black man to have things which belong to them. Oasis Ghana, the vision which I and Dr. Claire share is we need space to be for the whole world, not just the West, not just for other, but for the whole world. And Africa barely represents in this kind of statistics. No African has actually been to space, which I deem is a problem, actually. Because if you go and see the first African to go to space, it was not to be anything, but it was a white South African, not a Black African, who I think represents what we want to see out there in the space race. So I think our vision is, our vision for Oasis Ghana and Oasis Africa is to ensure that the Black man or Africa is part of the conversation in relation to space, how space is used, how space is represented, and the research in which we have to do with space. So I am very excited to be the project manager for Oasis Ghana to ensure that this vision is shared, is promoted, and I with Dr. Claire will help her and do my very best to ensure that the Black man is represented. And very soon, I hope that Oasis Ghana will be able to participate in sending the first Black African to space. Thank you.
Thank you. It's really nice to have young people like Jemima and Ernest on board, especially because when as a Jamaican Pan-Africanist coming to the table, I come with a different sentiment and approach than say somebody who has a big budget, right? So this whole process has been so far self-funded. We don't have any funding, and Rudy, you know, as a person working in the trenches in the community in London, in the Black community in London, that's always a big challenge. And so we're not able to, I'm sorry that the MP dropped off, but I just want to say that one of the first things we have to do with Oasis and why this day is so important for me is that as I think about the fact that there's going to be a major project next October called the world's biggest analog, Oasis was born out of me attending that conference and recognizing that there's going to be something called the world's biggest analog, and a major continent in the world was not going to be at the table. And when I looked around the room, I realized I was probably the only person that had the potential to make Africa be in the room, right? And you know, the Bible says to whom much is given, much is expected. It wasn't that I was looking for more work, but I just felt like if I didn't speak up, the gods would not be happy with me. So I spoke up and I said, what about Africa? And they said, well, what? There's no group in Africa. I said, yes, but I could start one, and I think we're ready to be in the group in 2025. And so hence the conference in Kenya last year, hence the conference in Ghana this year, and hence the relationship with Machakos, which has the highest support. And we've just been joined by Mr. Dub Guyo, who is from northern part of Kenya. I'm so happy he's joining us, who is going to be our point person on the ground in northern Kenya, because he represents the community development organization in this very remote village in Kenya, which always nobody goes, or as they say, scientists come and study, and then they leave with their report, and they go home and they get their doctorates or their masters, and are never heard from again. So we don't want to repeat that pattern of intellectual capitalism, right? Where we come and we take the knowledge of the traditional people. And quite frankly, I feel that the nomads of Kenya and the nomads of the San people in the desert in the Kalahari and in the Berber people in the Sahara have a lot to teach humanity about living in extreme environments. They have perfected it. And rather than say, for example, somebody coming and writing a thesis or a book, I think it's better if we find ways to excavate the knowledge of these traditional organizations and groups and let them publish the book. Let us partner to publish the books about, creation stories about the moon or the stars. And so by naming our village, working name of the village is Kijiji Kilimia, which is the Swahili word. Kilimia is the Swahili name of the Pleiades star system. And there is this assumption that Africans never had African names for stars. That's one of the things we have to debunk. And so the whole Oasis project is about indigenization where possible of the scientific process, the learning process, the intellectual process, and partnering with somebody like Ernest, who's also committed to bringing science and adding the arts. His recent project for World Space Week involved, I think, an arts part of the program where students were able to write about the moon. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ernest. I know there was some arts part of it, but not leaving the artists and the poets and the writers and the social studies people out of the conversation is very important. So I would like to see if Dub, are you able to unmute? If you're able to unmute and speak, I'd love to have you talk a little bit about the Juhudi organization in northern Kenya, Marsabit. If you can unmute, I'd like you to talk. Yeah, he's unmuting. I'd like to introduce Mr. Dub Guyo. He's a project manager for the Juhudi NGO, which deals with indigenous people, the nomads and pastoralists of Kenya, but more so in Marsabit. And they will be our partner on the ground, and Dub is going to be our project manager on the ground in Marsabit. So I'd love to have him tell a little bit about what the community of North Horr, the powerful vision they have for themselves, which includes an ITC center that we want to help make happen. So Dub, the floor is yours.
So, thank you, Clara. So my name is Juju Guyo. I work for Judy Mashinani in Marsabit. Juhudi is a local NGO which is based in Marsabit, and mainly our work involves around working with the Asal community, and particularly people in North Horr. These are pastoralists, nomads, whose main livelihood revolves around livestock rearing. 90%. I could also like a bit estimate to say 95%. The mainstay of the economy is around livestock rearing. Due to also, the predominant and also prolonged drought in the area as a result of, climate-induced emergencies in Kenya. Rainfall has been more or less predictable, and then the seasons have been shifting. prolonged drought has been all along. So as a result of the drought, livestock number has remained a bit decimated as a result of this emergency. Their main source of livelihood, the livestock now, has been depleted. And then poverty has been entrenched, so to speak. So currently, a lot of conversation, including the government now, has been around, issues of livelihood diversification, particularly to move away from livestock. You can keep like a manageable number, but diversifying, the livelihood around issues of, income generating activities, which will be businesses, income generating activities around agriculture, particularly, issues related to greenhouse, where, you can grow crops and feed your family and also generate a bit of income. So climate change has been, the major issue really that Judy Mashinani, my NGO, has been grappling with in Marsabit, and we are really happy to bring on board, the stakeholders to see how we can try and partner on this particular front, and try to also, diversify the livelihood, and also to mitigate the climate change.
I want to step back. I want to step back a little bit and just I want people to imagine, if you will. So I want you to imagine, because we were out there last year, I want you to imagine, if you will, a vast expanse of land, which is arid, scrub, desert, and Marsabit is a very interesting county. The county has green parts of it. The biggest desert in Kenya is in this county. And then to the north, right near the border of Ethiopia, is very, 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 very dry and rocky. So we have the conditions for really studying not only the desertification process and the climate process, but also having a fantastic simulation of a moon or Mars experience in that county. So imagine, if you will, us as a nonprofit Oasis coming in to build a facility in partnership with an NGO like Juhudi that will not only provide a space for research on climate. So, for example, Ernest talked earlier about having a ground station. We want to very quickly, when we start next year, we want to embed the boys' high school in that county with a tiny GS, which is a very affordable, a very affordable, and of course, we're going to get people like an Ernest to help do online training of these kids about how to read a satellite. How do you turn the data from just numbers into meaningful information? So we begin to not only help those students in Ghana who need to learn how to present and to promote, because if you're going on to do your master's or your doctorate, you have to have these experiences, but they also get to help the students in the Innovation Club in Machakos, at the same time, help the high school students who are nomads understand. Why is this important? Because as you heard, they're pastoralists. And up until now, when there is a sudden frost, their animals die. When their animals die, they are economically even more deprived and depressed. We want to have, as one of the first opportunities, the development of some kind of a climate weather information system that the nomads can have access to. So when there's going to be a frost, they know. So can you imagine when we Machakos and Futures Forum and Space Forum put a climate station in Machakos, and we have the tiny GS, and we're able to teach these students, there's no college there yet, teach these high school students how to read a satellite and how to tell people, express a frost tonight, right? Then they'll be able to save more of their livestock. So these are very practical reasons why we're doing some of this science out in the middle of nowhere People live there and they have been deprived of information and knowledge that could enhance their life without forcing them to move to the city to experience the modern lifestyle. We want to find a way to bring nomadic culture, pastoralist culture into the modern age without having to give it up altogether and to become a sedentary tribe or cultural ethnic group. So these are some of the ways in which we see this going forward. It looks as if that the MP's signal is not strong. But Honorable Warrior Ade, who introduced us to DUB, is really excited about this project. He's a member of parliament for the North Horr constituency of Marsabit County. And I have to tell you, having spent a long time, several conversations with him on the phone, he is a passionate environmentalist. And the research that he has brought to North Horr so far, which is how to green North Horr, is a demonstration of where there's a will, there's a way. We see ourselves coming alongside this community to bring the Oasis Marsabit campus to partnership with Jehudi Group to help them expand on the smart agriculture. And one of the things we want to begin very early to do is to partner with the school. So we plan to have a space club or an innovation club in the elementary school. They'll be doing climate change work. In the girls' high school, they'll be partnering to do some satellite work with the girls that are coming out of India. And then with the boys' school, we plan to do the tiny GS. And these are all affordable ways. And by affordable, I mean is I can go out to the listening audience on the show and say, hey, join us, support us, come be a part of the Space Futures Forum, come be a volunteer on our project, you can donate. These are the ways in which we can get everybody engaged. And so, you know, have a website, by the way, the Futures Forum /Oasis, Futures Forum /OASEAS. We're on LinkedIn as Oasis. We're on LinkedIn also as the Space Futures Forum group. So people can join the group, get engaged, and get involved. We're looking not for passive listening, oh, that was a nice story, but we really want to encourage anybody who's listening to this to, if you have an interest in giving back, in paying it forward, and ensuring that the young people of Africa, who are the majority of people in Africa, are not left behind, that you help us bring space science, engineering, technology, and arts to universities across Africa, to even high schools and elementary schools across Africa, beginning with the work we're doing through OASIS, the Omni-Africa Space Exploration Analog Simulation.
Thank you very much indeed. So that was a comprehensive. And Dr. Claire, would you just like to repeat one more time in terms of contact details for anyone who would like to get involved?
Yes. Before we just want to say thank you to Ernest in All Nations for the tremendous work that they're doing, tremendous work they did to host our conference in Ghana. Jemima and all the others from Ghana that participated. We're going to be pulling together that network. So we, as we say, we get people working together. We're going to thank people at Machakos for adopting me. I'm now a visiting professor there. And I'm going to thank Dub Guyo and Honorable MP Warrior Ade and Sarah Elema, who is not on this call, but she is our point of contact with the group. We went with her last year to the desert. She's a young healthcare professional. She's also an entrepreneur with a desert tourism project. And so we went with her and spent 4 days out in the desert. She knows it like the back of her hand. There are no roads. We're driving on sand and we end up in a new village. So she obviously knows the direction by some cosmic principle. And these are the partners that are going to be part of the OASIS project. Again, the Omni-Africa Space Exploration Analog Simulation Project. You can find us as a page on LinkedIn. So if you go to LinkedIn and you type in Omni-Africa Space, we'll show up. If you go to LinkedIn and you type in Space Futures Forum, we'll show up. You can follow the group. You can join the group. You can follow me, Dr. Claire Nelson, on LinkedIn. You can also send an email to thefuturesforum@gmail.com, thefuturesforum@gmail.com. And you can also visit us online at thefuturesforum.org/OACs and learn more about the project and the work we've been doing to establish. And as I said, we will be posting more regularly as we hope to get the schools in North Howard onboarded, the 3 schools. So we're looking for support funds to help us buy the computers and the software to get these schools their labs. And so I will be coming to the public very much beginning now at the end of the year, beginning today, quite frankly, with a GoFundMe campaign and other ways in which you can give to support this project. So listen out and look out for me, and please follow me online and stay connected to the Oasis project.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for your excellent presentations. And this is we're just at the beginning, and we're going to definitely ensure that everybody understands where the partnership and collaboration can take place, most importantly, and that then will translate into value for everyone. So thank you very much, Dr. Claire Nelson, for your hard work and dedication. Thank you, Charles, Ernest, and Jamina, for joining us. And of course, Mr. Goyo as well, who joined us late. So thank you
for having us. Take care.
And welcome, and we'll be rebroadcasting this program on Fresh FM Radio London. So that's goodbye and good night from us at Space Pathways. Thank you.